Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast, episode 58.
Welcome to the Out of Order Podcast, your window into the firearms community, exploring those shaping the future of our rights and protecting our lifestyle, laws, legal cases, activism, and self-defense in a candid and honest podcast for our brothers and sisters in arms. Here's your host, James Kalita.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 58 of the Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast. Today's sponsor is the Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast, so please head over to the show notes page and consider becoming a Patreon supporter. We've put together some special bonuses for Patreon supporters. You get exclusive access to our members-only Facebook group and a special thank you message on the show. Today's guest is Konnie Kouch from Women Armed and Ready. And now, here's Konnie.
Konnie Kouch, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So Konnie, you are the president and founder of Women Armed and Ready. Would you tell us a little about that organization?
Sure. I started the group out of necessity. Back in 2012, my husband and I, our home was burglarized. My husband was home. We didn't even realize we had been robbed for several days, as a matter of fact. We had some young men who we thought we were trying to help out working for us, and they came in and helped themselves to all my good jewelry. Then about 30 days later, I own two other businesses besides Women Armed and Ready, and about 30 days later, we get a call in the morning when our manager came in to open up for us, and we had been robbed again. Two completely separate incidents. And that left me with quite a feeling of, because I've been victimized. And I had a lot of trouble sleeping, a lot of trouble going out of the house by myself for a while. And I got to the point where I just said, enough is enough. Let's grab our bootstraps and pull yourself back up and get back on track. And I went to my husband, and who was a rifle instructor in the Marine Corps, and he had always tried to get me interested in firearms, and I just didn't have an interest in it. And I told him, I said, I want to carry a gun for protection, and he said, well, not until you get training. And in the state of Indiana, in order to get a concealed carry, you're not required to take any training. But he wanted me to have training, which now that I look back is a phenomenal thing. And, it showed that he really cared about me. So I went, and at that time, Ohio had a 12-hour requirement for their concealed carry. So I took a 12-hour class, came home, and really didn't feel much more comfortable with a firearm than I did before I left to take the class. And I began searching for training and couldn't really find anything out there that was going to give me training for any type of real-life situations. And so I decided to start something on my own, and I was thinking, okay, this is going to be something, 5 or 6 of us ladies will get together and go to the range every once in a while and shoot together. And I posted a little meeting and put out a few flyers, didn't do any advertising, and we had 50 women show up at the first meeting. And that really, really gave me a wake-up call that there was a definite need for females to be trained. And since then, we have numerous chapters that have started up. We train all of our members monthly. We work with other individuals who give us training that we can take back to our women in as close to real-life scenarios as you can get. More moving and shooting, not just standing and shooting at a static target. Even though we all have a good time, we're not a social club. We are there to learn and educate and give added support when needed. And that's where we're at today.
Wow. And so 50 people on the first meeting, that's a huge turnout. You
yeah, it was very I went through a kind of a identity crisis at that point, because I thought, why are they relying on me to do this? I don't know really what I'm doing yet. But by that point, I knew that I had to get myself in gear, and I became an instructor in several different principles, started working at the range quite a bit, and now I'm there continuously.
So what kind of training have you taken to help prepare you for this role now?
I'm sorry, say again?
So like what types of training have you taken to?
Okay. Well, I've taken instructor training in, of course, a pistol, refuse to be a victim, personal protection in the home. I'm an instructor in all those principles. I also am an affiliated instructor for United States Carry Conceal Association. I work weekly with a retired state trooper, Indiana State Trooper, and we work on various drills that would mimic something you might get into at your daily routine, whether it's in your home, school, car, workplace, shopping. And we try to use that to take back and train our members so they can use that same skill set in case they would ever have to. Currently, I've been working with some local churches to help them develop their safety programs and security teams. That's been very rewarding to be able to go in and help these people out. And I've attended several school board meetings in the recent, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, was, school's back in session for a good portion of the country. The kids are all going back to school. And, with what happened last February in Parkland, and, that's really on the minds of parents and grandparents. I'm a grandparent, so, I worry about those things. But my daughter-in-law and son have decided to homeschool our grandchildren just because of the security issues within the school system. And, it's something that every parent and grandparent should be finding out what is in place at those schools to secure the school and harden the buildings and to keep out the people that want to come in and do you harm.
Absolutely. And that's very telling that, not even because of the curriculum, but because of the security that they decided to homeschool their kids.
Well, right after the Parkland shooting, my daughter-in-law called me and she said, "I've had enough." And she said, "I just can't do this anymore. I can't put the kids on a bus and be concerned that I'm going to get a phone call or I'm going to hear sirens." She said, I can't take that anymore. And I said, I fully understand. And I've had a lot of parents come to me with those concerns. So, I've been training, mass shootings now for a couple of months, just, talking about what we can do to help combat that. The biggest issue, I believe, in our country that's caused us to see such a influx of deranged individuals going out and committing mass murders is the fact that, we have to do something to reset our moral compass. And what I mean by that, we are too acceptant of people in bad behavior. Back during my young years, when a teacher or person of authority would come to you and say, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" The answers were, teacher, doctor, business owner, things like that. The number one answer among our young people in this day and age is famous. They want to be famous. So, for instance, Cho in the Virginia Tech shooting, that's what he was going toward. He was a social outcast. He had had psychiatric problems since 8th grade, and his parents were aware of this. He had a couple of professors that were scared to death of him. His roommates were scared. The police had intervened on campus prior to the shooting, and he was currently undergoing outpatient psychiatric therapy. But he was still able to go out and purchase firearms and come in and do harm to people and murder. Those people, when they are at that stage, they're going to do harm, whether it's with a firearm or with a pointy stick. And we need to be aware of those people. But we have become so acceptant of drug addiction, people abusing children, and it's not acceptable as far as the law is concerned, but we seem to want to pass it off. The epidemic, the heroin epidemic in our country right now, and if Child Services comes in and intervenes on behalf of the children, well, their number one priority is to reunite the parents with the children, which, ideally, yeah, that's what you want to happen. But we got to stop the addiction in the first place. We have got to get this under control because the kids are suffering from it, and our society as a whole is suffering. We've got to examine the gang violence in places like Chicago and Detroit. I mean, I watched on the news this morning before you called, and Chicago, parents are hiding their children to keep them away from the gang violence. Now, this is going to affect these children into adulthood.
Yeah, that really is. And so what advice do you have for people out there that are sort of just waking up to what's going on around them and want to get a firearm for self-defense?
Sure. Well, the number one thing that we try to train for, and I know you've heard this before, the gunfight you always win is the one you never have to have. Okay, so we train a tremendous amount of situational awareness. There's a color code level of awareness that was developed in the military by Air Force Colonel John Boyd. And he developed this for our military to prepare soldiers for combat. And we try to train the same situations, the white, yellow, orange, red, black levels of awareness. And just, for instance, just walking down the street, or you're in the mall or something, just watch people and see if they're even aware that there are other people around them. Most of them are on cell phones. They're texting. Unfortunately, in Europe, they're starting to put traffic signals in the sidewalks so people don't step off the curb in front of oncoming traffic. So we try to train people, our members, to be aware of what's going on around them, and not just in front of them or next to them or in back of them, but 50 feet away. That way you can divert. If you can divert from a situation in the very beginning. If you are sending your kids to a school where they have an open door policy, that the schools are not locked down or hardened in any way, you need to be aware of that, and you need to start attending school board meetings and holding these people accountable for your children's safety. Same way if you're in your houses of worship, find out what their policies are. You want to be safe no matter where you go. Stay out of gun-free zones. For one thing, if we walk up to a place, a restaurant, for instance, and there's a sign on the door that is a gun-free zone, we just turn and walk away. The Colorado shooter in Aurora, Colorado, with the theater. He drove by 6 different theaters, and the 7th one that was playing the Dark Knight Rises was the one that he went into because it was posted that it was a gun-free zone. So he knew going in that nobody was going to fight back.
And we've been saying that for years, that we knew gun-free zones would just create mass victim zones, but the
only ones that pay attention and abide by those signs are law-abiding citizens, and those aren't the ones you have to be concerned about.
Right.
But along with that, you have, and especially, women are the number one growing demographics in the firearm industry. So what we tell our ladies when they come in, most of them will come in, they've had no previous training, they don't own a firearm, or if they do have a firearm, it's something that their husbands have had and is letting them borrow. They're not aware of any type of holsters or concealed carry purses or what have you. So we bring those people in, and the first thing I tell them is don't run right out and buy a firearm. We want you to come in, and we've got many firearms for our members to use. And, of course, all the ladies that have been with us for some time, they've all got their new firearms, and they like to bring them in and show them off. It's like a Tupperware party for guns. Everybody wants to show their new gun, and, hey, here, try mine. So that it's a lot of fun to do that, and we want you to experience how different firearms actually feel and handle. One of the biggest mistakes is going out for a female, and either the husband will buy them a firearm that is not suited for them, or the gun store that you're going to. Well, because you're a female, you should have a revolver.
Right.
and we try to steer our women away from that. Especially, you get a little older woman, or more mature woman coming to the range, and may have arthritic hands or what have you, and the gun store has sold her something that has a 8 or 10 pound trigger pull.
Oh. Yeah,
and it's got a hidden hammer on it, and they can't even pull the hammer back to operate in a single action. So, we try to deter them from that happening because, let's face it, it's an investment. Firearms can be pretty expensive, so we don't want you to run out and buy something that's not going to help you. And then, because then you become discouraged very quickly, and then there goes your training completely out the door. So we tell them, don't run right out and buy a firearm. Go somewhere where you can either rent, if you're not a member of one of our chapters, then find a gun store or a range that you can rent a firearm, and try out several different makes and models. You wouldn't run right out and buy the first car you looked at without driving it, especially. So, do a little research on that, and then decide how are you going to carry that firearm. Do you want to carry it in a purse, which we try to deter our females from doing that. If they take your purse, they've got your only means of protection. So we try to get everybody to wear it on their person, and then and start coming to training. You can't expect to develop good muscle memory by bringing your firearm home and putting it in a drawer. That's a big mistake that a lot of people, not just women, a lot of people make. I've got my gun, I've got my permit, I took my concealed carry class, so I'm good to go. No, you're not. You got to do training. You have to develop a skill set and a mindset in order to be effective.
And so I always ask my guests if there are any books they recommend that all gun owners should read. Do any come to mind for you?
Well, I mean, there's books out there, and I've read a lot of different things. if you have a NRA membership, you get to choose one of their magazines that comes to you monthly. America's First Freedom, that's just one of them. Then there's USCCA. They have their concealed carry magazine, and I'll tell you what, it is loaded with different training and skills. But even reading, you will not get what you need by actually going out and physically picking up your firearm and being trained to use it properly. And I train men as well, and I find it in a lot of cases. I've been shooting since I was 10, and they come to the range and they don't have any clue how that handgun operates, how to get it out of a holster, and like I said, you can read that all you want, but until you actually do it and physically train with it, it's not really going to help you out a whole lot.
It's true. And so, how many chapters do you guys have now? How widespread are you?
We're mostly in the southeast Indiana, southwest Ohio, and northern Kentucky areas right now. We've got 3 chapters in Indiana, 1 in Kentucky, and 2 in Ohio. So,
Great.
6 chapters. 6 chapters right now. And, our membership is around 500 ladies. We welcome new members at each and every meeting. We require now that if you haven't had a previous class by a certified instructor, then we require you now to take our class before we let you go out on the range, because our range is getting so heavily used that we need that, so we can make sure that safety is our number one concern, obviously. So we want to make sure that everybody is functioning on a safe level. And then once we get a member up to speed, then we start working with them on various moving drills, teaching them about the OODA loop. And if you're not familiar with that, that was also developed by Colonel Boyd. It's observe, orient, decide, and act, because every time you change your direction or your plan, that causes your assailant to have to do the same thing. So we train you to be able to move and make that decision quickly. So they have to do the same thing, and they have to recalculate, which gives you extra seconds. So the faster you become, whether it's with drawing from a holster, on a reload, that gives you that advantage as over the person that's trying to launch the attack against you.
And where can people find you online, or places we should?
We're on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
All of our chapters have a Facebook page. We have our website, womenarmedandready.com, and that's all spelled out. And we post our calendar on there, so if somebody is trying to find us, they can find us by that. If somebody wants to start a chapter, we can discuss that with them. I will say it is a commitment. It's not something you should take lightly. I want to get 10 friends together and we're going to go shoot, because like I said, we don't just stand and shoot at a static target. We train more of, SWAT light, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Sure. Great. Well,
and they're always welcome to call me.
Oh.
My cell phone number is listed on our Facebook and on our website, and that comes directly to me. And if someone wants to call and ask me a question, or they have a concern, I'll be more than happy to help them in whatever way I can. If I don't have the answer, I'll find it and call them back. It's a different world that we live in, the one that I grew up in. So, I just hope that people out there take in consideration that, I'm not going to just run out and buy a gun and stick it in my underwear drawer and think that I'm safe. That gives you a really false sense of security, and we don't want that. We want you to be not only legal, we want you to be effective, and that's our primary goal. But we also train how to go home and harden your home so that person or those individuals can't get in the first place, because I made the mistake. I made the mistake, and I paid for it. I paid for it. I was robbed, and not only did it rob me of personal possessions, it robbed me of my sense of security. And I'll tell you, it's a terrible, terrible feeling. And I didn't come face to face with my perpetrators. I had seen them. We knew who they were, but I didn't have a one-on-one interaction with them when being robbed. So those women out there who have been attacked, my heart really goes out to them. Which, by the way, just FYI, Kansas University in June of 2017, implemented a concealed carry privilege to students and faculty on campus. And in my America's First Freedom, there's an article that states that their on-campus violence has dropped by 17%.
Wow.
So that to me is very that's a positive.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, that is definitely an excellent statistic to kind of demonstrate what we've all been saying all along, that as more people carry, violent crime goes down.
And that's a proven fact. The more NICS checks that there are, you do see a drop in violent crime. But like I said, I don't want people to run out and purchase a firearm and get their concealed carry permit and then think that that's all they need to do.
Right.
Because then they're going to hurt themselves, or if they are attacked, chances are when that adrenaline kicks in, they're not going to have that muscle memory to be able to use the firearm to protect themselves or to protect a loved one. Like in my case, it would be my grandkids. Don't mess with my grandkids. That would be bad for you. Yep. But I can't emphasize enough, and this is to everybody, not just females, but to everybody. Go get training. Go get the right training. Don't rely on Cousin Ed to come to your house and you're going to stand and shoot at paper targets all day. Go out there and search. If you don't have a Women Armed and Ready chapter in your area, go out and search for some other training facilities that might be in your area, and take these classes and take those skills home and dry fire. Think of scenarios in your own home or at your workplace of how, if this happens. My husband and I, we kind of play a little game when we go into a new restaurant or something. We'll sit down and I'll say, okay, what if somebody comes through that door? What are we going to do? And because we use, and then I take these things back that we've talked about, and I use them to help educate our other ladies. Because people don't think about that. They don't think about, well, what happens if I'm sitting there at a restaurant and somebody comes in and starts to open fire? What are you going to do? Call for your server?
Yeah. Yep.
She can't help you because she's
Nope.
going to be out. She's going to be out the back door of the kitchen. So,
right.
For instance, take what happened in Texas years ago at Landrys Cafeteria, when a deranged man drove his pickup truck through the front window and started opening fire. You know, this woman who it was a gun-free zone. She wasn't permitted to carry there, and so she left her firearm in her glove compartment, and she was taking her mother and father out for lunch, and this man, he had a problem, obviously, and drove through the front window and got out and started opening fire, and he was right point-blank range and killed her father right in front of her. And she was trying to get her mother out of the building, and her mother got away from her and went back to her father, and he came back and killed her as well. You know, had that woman been permitted to have her gun, then, you know, in most likelihood, her mom and dad would have lived.
Right.
Same way within our schools. I hear whenever I go to these school board meetings, well, what if a student takes a firearm away from a teacher? Well, we're going to train that teacher not to have their firearm taken away, or that faculty member.
Right.
You know, we're going to train them to fight. Back to the Virginia Tech shooting. When Cho came into Norris Hall and started shooting, I mean, he was carrying a 9mm Glock and a Walther 22. Now, he wasn't an expert marksman by no shape of form or fashion. He was a nut job that was able to get a firearm and come in and start shooting people because he was a social outcast, and that was what caused his dysfunction. But in any event, he comes in and starts shooting, and most of the people that were shot in the head. Why? Because the students were trained to shelter in place. Understand, shelter in place means wait till somebody comes and shoots me in the back of the head.
Yep. In one large group that's easy to aim at. Yep.
And only one room in Norris Hall had no fatalities and no injuries. And do you know why?
They barred the door?
The professor in that room was Israeli.
Oh.
So they were trained from about age 3 on what to do. And he knew how to barricade the door, and he knew what to do with his students. And they were prepared to fight should Cho breach that barricade. But he knew how to properly barricade because he had been trained to do it. You know, stacking a bunch of chairs up against the door isn't a proper barricade. So, you know, this is why that those students, and they can thank that one professor. And as much as people in our country don't want to accept the fact that there are bad people out there that want to kill you, they need to start training our youth. We go every year and train a Girl Scout troop on firearms, a local Girl Scout troop. And there's about 20 or 30 kids, young ladies that we train. And, you know, it's pretty amazing to watch these young women, even though they're using BB guns, which is just as much of a firearm as anything else. We treat them the same. It's pretty amazing and satisfying to me to watch their capabilities from when we start in the morning till that afternoon, and the amount of respect that they show the firearms. It's just, and if parents would understand that better, I think we would have a lot less infatuation with the gun violence.
Thank you. Well, Connie, I thank you very much for being on the show, and I look forward to having you on again soon.
Okay. Well, I thank you very much for thinking of us and inviting us to be on. And I just hope everybody out there stays safe and uses good common sense and get training. Train. And it's fun. It's a lot of fun to train and be on the range.
Thanks again for tuning in to the Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast. The show notes page for today is outoforderjameskalita.com/58. And today's free ad is for the Friends of the NRA dinner hosted by Women Armed and Ready. It's coming up this Saturday, the 25th, and head over to the show notes page, outoforderjameskalita.com/58, and you'll find a link where you can get more information. You could also head over to Women Arms and Ready, click on their calendar, and you'll find some information there. This is Out of Order James Kalita. We'll see you next time.